Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? 23-7 win over the Packers. Hard to ask for anything more. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings postcast here on Locked On Sports Minnesota, brought to you by Bet Online. Here with Sam Ekstrom, as we will be every week. Sam, coming from the building, what's the vibe like over there in what looks like the press room at US Bank?
Yeah, it's an extended celebration in the crowd. People got to leave early and beat traffic. Them happy Vikings fans, some of them disappointed Packers fans, but this a rare Viking through last season where the outcome was early on, and with that big stand in the fourth quarter, I think that kind of sealed the Vikings go on a 5-minute field goal drive that kind of clinched it. This was not a sexy offensive performance in the second half. That was reserved for the first half. I think the defense, though, in the second half, a pretty big story in this game, too.
Yeah, I think we'll see on the tape that the Packers made some kind of adjustment because Justin Jefferson was just running free in that first half. You can't let somebody approach 200 on you in a half and not change everything about how you're playing the game. So you kind of expect it to quiet down a little bit. But what a game for Justin Jefferson, especially when he got one-on-one with Eric Stokes, who was really supposed to be a bigger deal for the Packers this year. And he just could not keep up. He's just not enough player to keep up with what Justin Jefferson can do on his routes. And the way he found holes in zones, these deep overs, Kirk Cousins finding him all the time, delivered some dimes. That connection looks just as good as it did in camp. And we kind of see what that turns into when it gets to a live game.
Yeah, I mean, I love the trust between Kirk and Justin on the outbreaking stuff near the sideline, which was basically unstoppable when they needed like 8 or 9 yards. And then the in-breaking stuff, the crossing routes, which used with the Kubiak system as well, a lot with Justin.
Sure.
They had no answer for it. Clearly some miscommunications in the secondary there. Green Bay did not look cohesive at all in their secondary. And Justin was even startled on his second touchdown where he was expecting a body to be within 10 yards of him, and there wasn't anybody. And
there's nobody. They just busted.
The end zone. Almost have 3 touchdowns in this game if he gets a toe tap down. So massive game for him. Sammy Wiggle game, regular season could be in jeopardy at some point, in jeopardy today. But credit Justin, obviously credit Kirk Cousins for a mistake-free game, even though he tried a couple times to give the ball away, I thought. And Vikings fans have to be thrilled to see that connection come to fruition.
Yeah, a couple of not great Cousins plays if you wanted to really hone in on the worst, but we take this game all day, every day. If we can get 17 like this from Cousins, this team's going places. But I kind of want to flip to the other side. Speaking of secondaries, I think I counted 3 different coverage busts, all of them between Patrick Peterson and Chandon Sullivan. Hard to know who was supposed to do what job, and maybe I can make a guess once I get to look at exactly what the coverages were, but that was the sort of thing that I expected. I got crow to eat. All right. I was down on this game, and I gotta everybody take your victory laps on me, because I thought they were going to get killed and they ended up killing them. And part of it was because I expected those coverage busts to turn into worse plays. And the Packers just couldn't punish, Christian Watson with that drop right at the beginning. Other wide open plays just after it was too late, and moments where the pressure was there and Rodgers couldn't get the ball where he wanted to get it. Rodgers did not have his best game, clearly playing through some pain after that one hit. He had that pain in his neck. So I think, I don't know, I way overestimated the Packers, which is a great thing to say. Oops, they're worse than I thought. Oh, no.
Well, other than plays where there were major busts, the coverage was really good in this game.
Really good when they were all where they were supposed to be.
3, 4, 5 seconds. Yeah. They were able to get those coverage sacks sometimes. One where Rodgers was shaken. And obviously Rodgers not really trusting his wide receivers a terrible amount. I haven't tallied up what it was by game's end, but at one point he had thrown into running backs 9 times and wide receivers 4 times. And I'm sure it evened out a little bit by the end, but he doesn't have a safety net anymore. Like 4th and 1 at the end of the game, to his tight end over the middle. He doesn't have a Devontae. 4th and 1 at the goal line, they run the ball. He doesn't have a little out throw. So I think that's pretty notable that Aaron Rodgers is still searching, and seem to have all the answers for him in this one.
Yeah, and there was a tweet from Peter Bukowski of Locked On Packers, which I will be listening to on Monday. That'll be fun. He talked about how their offense had no identity, and I realized like maybe the biggest blip on the defense for the Vikings was Jordan Hicks, who I thought they really preyed on, just his range to the outside, a lot of play action to suck him up into the A gap, and then something into the flat. So a lot of those running back passes were huge plays because Jordan Hicks just couldn't get out there in time. He's just not quite as fast as Barr was in his prime, not quite as fast as Kendricks is. And that might be something that was there. But that was kind of the only pitch the Packers had. And eventually that broke down, and they started splitting Hicks out a little wider. And that's kind of the only adjustment it takes. And I agree with Peter. It's not an offensive identity. It was like, we found one weakness and we're going to attack it. But what are the Packers? They couldn't answer that question, and it made them a lot easier to cover. And then I think those wide receivers on the outside, there's going to be a lot of talk about how much they miss Devontae Adams, but maybe not as much talk as there should be about how the secondary of Dantzler and Peterson and the safeties, Bynum and Smith, and even Chandon Sullivan, although I didn't think he had a great game, won that battle. They beat up those guys. No Allen Lazard. They beat up these rookies and Sammy Watkins. And it's very clear that if some of those guys, if they don't get Lazard healthy or they don't get more help in that room, the Vikings aren't going to be the only team to shut them down like that.
Well, no matter how formidable a team's rushing attack is, he's going to allow, if the rushing attack beats you a little bit, but you can shut down the wide receivers, no matter who the quarterback is, what the team is, you'll take that exchange. And the Vikings gave up yards.
And that's exactly what this was.
They kind of played a bend but not break style. We kind of saw that from Mike Zimmer's teams in recent years, except they couldn't stop the pass. This team was really good against the pass. And yeah, they got gashed on a couple drives that resulted in zeros. The Packers couldn't finish the deal on 4-1. And the Vikings were excellent in high leverage situations. They were great on 3rd down. They were great on 4th down. And really a game of big 4th downs where the Vikings score their first TD on one, Packers fail 1 yard line, and then again late if they were maybe going to get back into the game. So the Vikings just came up big when they needed to. Certainly fueled by the energy today a little bit. They go into Philadelphia now next week with so much more confidence and not the jitters of being 0-1.
Right, and being on the verge of 0-2, and Philly just won their game too. Let's talk about Zadarius Smith, who had among that front, which, Dalvin Tomlinson was all over the backfield. Harrison Phillips was unmovable. Daniil Hunter had his play. That whole front was just cooking. But Zadarius Smith is the superstar of the game. In the revenge game, the petty energy won out. The Packers were missing a couple of offensive linemen. Elton Jenkins and David Bakhtiari both didn't end up playing in this game, and that was a maybe going in. But still, Zadarius Smith dominated against some of the starters on Green Bay too.
Yeah, I noticed that the Vikings kind of hunting the interior actually a little bit. We saw Daniil exchange places with Dalvin Tomlinson at one point where Dalvin was on the edge and Daniil was in the middle. I saw Smith surveying the middle as well sometimes. So there were on that line, especially the Packers lost Runyon. They were down 3 starters. So this was a day where the Vikings were probably sitting on 4 sacks and a number of other pressures. It wouldn't have been fun to be Rodgers' weaknesses in front of him. And Zadarius Smith looks healthy, man. Whatever he dealt with last year with the back, he looks to be 100%. And so often we see revenge games kind of fall flat. Guys aren't able to harness the talk and kind of, actually deliver when push comes to shove. And Zadarius totally did today. The little exchange between Zadarius and Rodgers where Rodgers tried to block him. Zadarius knocked him down. And then the camera comes smiling and joking with each other. So not all bad. Yeah. There's a lot of talk this week, but Zadarius showed up big time.
Yeah, I don't think Zadarius' problems were with Rodgers himself. So I guess the operative question, what we're going to be talking about all week, is this not the Packers division anymore? Because it's been the Packers division pretty much unquestioned for the last 3 years. Nobody's come close. But hello, we're the Minnesota Vikings. Is it time? Rodgers looked a little old in this game. I'm not going to lie. And They put up 7 points against a brand new defense in its very first day. Is it time to start saying, hey, maybe the Vikings are going to take this?
Well, the Packers, had arguably a worse debut last year on the road, and they still won 13 games. So
True.
I guess you don't need to press the panic button yet. Aaron Rodgers probably dropping RELAX in the post game. It is nice for the Vikings to play from ahead for once, because they haven't been above 500 in 3 years, and now they finally are, and they get to play with that time now for 16 weeks until the Packers can potentially get it back, and even the head-to-head in Green Bay in frigid cold, I'm sure. So this gives the Vikings some wind in their sails. Detroit's defense was abysmal today. Bears won a pretty goofy game where conditions played a huge part, but I think this is still a 2-team race in this division. And and I think the Vikings, any doubt that fans had that they'd be able to acclimate to new systems right away, I think was put to rest today with how easy they made it look on offense in the first half and how clutch the defense was.
A lot of my doubts were put to rest, because a lot of my doubts involved hey, it's going to take a while to get things under them. But this doubt was only supposed to exist for the first 6 weeks. And now look, it's week 1 and they're playing a lot smoother. Again, there were some busts and we're going to deal with that for a bit. But it's nice to be able to overcome it and have that kind of be the only production that they were able to get. Otherwise, they had to sort of live in this world underneath of 4 yards a pop. And nobody ever won a game 4 yards at a time. And that's how you get 7 points when your offense goes through your running backs, and that's about it. That'll give you 7 points in a game. Overall, it's hard not to start extrapolating and saying, all right, Super Bowl, let's do it. But there's obviously, it's 1 week. It's, you got Monday night against a tough looking Eagles team next week, but going into that with this 1 win under your belt, really exciting. And it's hard to overstate how good of a result this was. This is about the best outcome you could imagine. Closing thoughts, Sam.
Yeah, a 16-point win where you didn't have to sweat against Green Bay, and you got to see Jordan Love at the end of the game. Rodgers probably losing faith in his offensive weapons. He might not be 100% after this game. So the Packers, they have a lot to be concerned about, I guess. Think of it not only Vikings have a lot to be encouraged by, but Green Bay worried about this week. So like I said, they've been known to attack from single game situations, but they do have a lot to work out, especially on Lazard today. They looked answerless at the wide receiver position. And hey, it does matter after all when you don't have weapons. So I think that's yet to be determined how Green Bay is going to figure that out.
Absolutely. This postcast is brought to you, by the way, by betonline.net, your one-stop shop for all things online betting. You could have bet on this game. You could have lost money like me on this game. You can bet on WNBA finals going down, baseball playoffs coming up, and anything else. You can build player props, even bet right in the middle of games with Bet Online. I guess, where do we go from this? Oh, we should talk about the offensive line. Up and down before we go, since we got a little time here. Up and down day for the offensive line. Ed Ingram gives up a couple of pretty bad pressures and one bad sack. You had one bad sack from Bradbury, a bad run play from Bradbury. Ezra Cleveland, very up and down, had a couple of great blocks, got killed on a pull by, I think, Dean Lowry, or maybe it was Preston Smith. But I don't know. What do you make of the Christian Darrisaw goes out of the game for a second, comes back in, has a couple great blocks. What do you make of the O-line as a whole, Sam?
Yeah, the rookie mistakes for Ingram, I'm not going to get too hung on. In his first half of play, definitely skittish. Second half, I thought was improved. I thought there were some moments too where Kirk had amazing protection to make anything of it. So you'd like to see him deliver there more. But all in all, I think it was probably more positive than negative in this game. Running game found its footing a bit more late when they had a lead, and that's exactly how they should be playing. Passing to gain a lead and set up the run, instead of running to set up the pass, which they've done for so many years. And today worked exactly as you would expect and how you would hope it would work. I think that offense enough that, this can be a serviceable offensive line, not world beaters by any means. I still have about the interior. And I felt like their use of play action today was savvy, and Kirk looked even maybe a little more comfortable kind of moving around within the pocket than usual. So that's all good.
Yeah. Yeah, like climbing the pocket especially. And on that one big long shot to Justin Jefferson, play action shot, pressure, climbs the pocket, finds space, finds time, and through that with anticipation, there was a safety that could have made a play on that ball, but his leverage was wrong. Like where he was standing was wrong, but he was going the wrong direction. You had to kind of anticipate how that's going to shake out. And delivering that ball, just choosing to deliver that ball was a big thing that I really wanted to see from Cousins. And we saw it, and it was a gain of 64. That really is exciting. And I think in terms of like the pass pro, I wish it were a little better. I think I would like a little more. Kenny Clark's a good player. Preston Smith's a good player. They got some dudes over there. So it's, they're going to get some. But I think especially in the run, the amount of push that they got in the run, I think really demoralized. They said at the Fox broadcast said at halftime that the Packers went into the locker room feeling dejected. That was the word, dejected. And I think that's when you get run up and down all day like that, and you just get out physicaled at the line of scrimmage on run plays like that, that'll make you dejected. And Matt LaFleur said he was disappointed with the effort and actually questioned the effort of his players on the whole after one half. That's a rough way to start a season and a fantastic thing for the Vikings. We love it when the Packers suffer over here on the Locked On Vikings postcast. For more on all this, you can, of course, find the Locked On Vikings podcast. Should be up Monday morning. And then, of course, the Minnesota Football Party will be up later on Monday with Sam and I and Luke Inman and Arif Hassan. I'm sure we'll have all kinds of fun. You guys can dance on my grave as I got just about everything wrong on this one. So we will see you all next time here on the I deserve it. That's all fair. All fair. We'll see you all next time on the Locked On Vikings postcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.